Hello, welcome to Game 2 of Medium Games Finals between Crlundy and Fika Monster. Fika Monster felt like they were very far out of it last game and almost resigned, but managed to come back and take a tie in the end. So quite an exciting one. We'll see what we have here. First thing I notice, there's no trashing. There's quite a bit of there's Alt VP and Mountain Pass, which is 8, and Nobles, which is 16. So certainly you can play with Alt VP stuff. Nobles tend to work okay with Crossroads. You want to build towards provinces. This might be a kingdom where you play with taxman. There's no other treasure thinning. Thinning coppers into silvers. This feels like a slow kingdom, I guess, is my thought here. So taking a taxman is not terrible. You could also take ghost towns. I think you'll probably end up taking quite a few ghost towns, both players. Hamlets plus buy. Royal carriage is nice for the village effect. Obviously, nobles are worth VP, and they're the other source of draw here. So probably you want to grab some nobles and some royal carriages. You can always play the first nobles as plus draw, and then if you draw another action you want to play the royal carriage to play it for actions. And if you just draw like ghost towns and treasures, you could then keep the royal carriage in the mat. And probably you want to play with at least one crossroads, maybe 2, depending on how many nobles you get and what the density of nobles is in the deck. You've always got your 10 starting cards, so it's not super easy to get a ton of green cards, but the estates are okay with crossroads. Quest is discard attack 2 first or 6 cards. That probably won't come up much. And if you're playing this deck with nobles and crossroads and some ghost towns and taxman, Seller's probably not a bad card to throw in at some point just to be able to discard coppers and draw other stuff that you want to see. Hamlet also functions as a village and plus buy, so certainly I'll add Hamlet to the board. I'm interested with the Mountain Pass strategy. I think it's important to note where one is in Mountain Pass, where one is in the Mountain Pass kingdoms, to have that strategy from turn 1, what the plan is in terms of when you're going to look to buy a province and try to hit a province early to mess up your opponent's deck with the Mountain Pass, or make it so your opponent has to bid an awkward amount, either too much or too little, to give you that extra VP. Typically, you don't want a province too early, and then if your opponent kind of underbids, you end up taking out a bunch of debt that takes you longer to pay off. But on this kingdom, you can do taxman stuff. You can set up ghost towns, havens, get royal carriages down in the mat. And potentially, even if you get down to 0 money, but after you could, probably won't quest. But yeah, you could always discard a taxman. I guess quest you could discard a taxman for a gold, which is at least something to consider. Here is Fika, who opened Fika opened Haven Taxman. I would have considered taking the ghost town just to make sure you see the taxman at the bottom of the shuffle, and make sure to see to have 3. Here, I assume they'll just get another Hamlet, maybe a Crossroads at this point. The Haven is kind of nice with setting, because you're mostly going to set aside estates with Haven. So having a Crossroads is a little bit better. You can also set aside the Crossroads with Haven if you don't have any estates in hand. I believe in the taxman here. It is just annoying enough to your opponents to annoy their turns that I would strongly, and this kingdom seems slow as everyone is saying, that I'm perfectly okay with it. So if I can play this Hamlet first, hopefully they draw an estate, and if not, they just play the Crossroads. I think there are situations here where you could discard the Crossroads for plus buy, and then quest the taxman and gain a gold, buy a haven or something. I didn't think that would... I don't think they're listening in. I didn't think that was the right play to make, because they are adding money density to their deck, but they're decreasing their action density. I think this should be a ghost town. I think this is a kingdom where Taxman is actually pretty good. The attack is really annoying. And the money density increase is actually relevant here. Yeah, Haven Crossroads is it's a little bit of something, I guess is what I will say. I really wanted to take a plus buy there so I could buy two things. We'll see what Fika does here. Because I don't want fours. I don't want 4 in one buy. I do want 5 or 6 to get Real Carriage Nobles, or 4 with 2 buys to get Haven Crossroads. Sierra Lundy, who at the top of the screen ends up getting a little less notice. Sorry about that. Is moving along here. They've got nobles now. I assume this will be a royal carriage. They really need to pick up a hamlet soon. They're getting to the point where they're going to end up spending way more money on a hamlet than like spending 6 money on a hamlet. But their deck will be much better once they start hitting 8. If they could hit 8 plus 2 buys as opposed to just 8 and 1 buy, that'll let them buy nobles plus crossroad, or nobles plus another hamlet. But that last turn, I think, even should have been a hamlet if you're not buying the rail carriage. And I suppose with rail carriages, you can get away with 1 hamlet. It's not great. So I think this should be a rail carriage as well. They may argue that they have nobles coming up, so they don't want to trigger. They want to have an action so they can play it as a smithy. But here, I think as Sierra Lundy, I would just buy a hamlet. Fika Monster gets a ghost town as well. Yeah, so notably, this kingdom is a lot slower than the previous kingdom. Trashing is much weaker. Players are able to be much more deliberate in their decisions. I think I want to haven that estate. I'm not 100% on that, but it feels like you want to be havening your estates as much as possible for the crossroads draw, and then draw more havens to haven more things. I assume this will be another. I can actually believe any of the 2 costs: crossroads, hamlet, haven. I guess I don't believe in cellar yet, but other than that, all of them seem reasonable. So now that Sierra Lundy has a hamlet, which they bought last turn, they can start to buy 2 things. They need to pick up a crossroads. I think they need to get some more havens. I strongly would have discarded for buy there and bought 2 costs and trashed copper into silver rather than silver into gold. But we are starting to see the decks are hitting nice price points. This should be set aside gold, I believe. Yeah. And then they'll be able to buy nobles, which is nice. And slowly but surely, we're getting to decks that are able to do nice things. Sierra Lundy's going to get another nobles here. So if Fika knows they don't have a crossroads down here, I think you still set aside this estate, trigger a shuffle here, and then you've got all your good stuff in the shuffle. I think they really should have triggered the shuffle there. It's missing a gold, but you really want to be seeing your actions more than treasures. And I think Sierra Lundy here needs to focus on getting a crossroads. So if they trash a copper into a silver, they can get like a crossroads and a hamlet, or they can just get another royal carriage. It looks like is what they're doing since they trashed 2 treasures. I guess this is the weird kingdom where the taxman's ability to put the treasures on top of the deck is actually bad. You don't really want the treasure on top of the deck. There doesn't seem to be a nice way to draw it, but yeah, I think Fika really could have triggered a better shuffle last turn. And so this one's just a little bit awkward. And I think the decks can support more hamlets and more crossroads and havens. I don't know that I need as many ghost towns as they're buying. Here, Sierra Lundy's got a lot of money. I think they should strongly consider provincing here, like crossroads province. make Fika Monster take a tough decision as to what they want to do with the Mountain Pass. I'm slightly worried that they're treating Mountain Pass as an afterthought, and it's a fairly substantial chunk of victory points. So Fika here has the same decision, I think, and they should be able to gain and play whatever treasure they trash. And in general, I'd rather be trashing coppers than silvers, I think. There's like some argument to be made in terms of discarding. You want to be able to have stratified treasures, so you have coppers to discard and golds in hand, but the discard attack feels more prevalent in terms of coppers. I'm not sure. Maybe it doesn't end up mattering. That was a very, very nice turn for Fika. And they've won the Noble Split now 5-3, which means Searland is going to have to catch up somewhere else, which probably ends up being on Mountain Pass. It's too bad you can't pay off your debt the turn you buy the province, because they're going to have a lot of money here. I assume this is silver into gold. If you have to top deck a treasure, I guess you'd rather top deck a gold than a silver. And they've got enough money to buy Crossroads Province again, which I think is the right decision. They've got to hope that Fika takes on debt and can't buy anything for 2 turns. And then they're able to get 2 provinces in that amount of time, and Mountain Pass is only worth 8. So we'll see what Fika bids here. One thing to look at is how many coins they had last turn. They had 3 golds and 5 coppers. They had 14 money last turn. They also played a taxman and drew into it. So they've got 14 money, maybe 15 money if they're able to trash and play. It doesn't seem like it doesn't seem like a huge consideration to me that it happened last turn. Fika's last turn probably the best kind of, like, they're not likely to have turns like that every turn, I guess is what I'm saying. So 14 money, 15 money feels like it's a bit much. Plus there's multiple buys here, but all you're doing with those extra buys is buying estates, right, for group points. So these decks can actually support a few more estates, I think, than they have. They can also support more havens and crossroads. I'm surprised that those piles are as high as they are and the ghost towns are so low. 14 is sort of a standard bid that people make. There's a lot of complicated logic, and I feel like I understand that number fairly well, having to do with calculating sort of a probability distribution over the range of what your deck can do. And, if all it costs you is your 1 province that you would have bought anyways for 8, then you can bid 8, trivially. But if you can get to 16 in 2 buys, then you could have bought 2 provinces. You'd much rather have 2 provinces than 8 VP. So 16 is kind of an awkward bid in a multi-buy kingdom. Fika bid 14. Fika bid, 13? See, I only bid 14. I did say 14. I would have bid, I think, 15 as Fika, maybe 16. The log doesn't say what they bid, but I assume it's 13 based on Crlundy taking 14. That being said, there's a little bit of logic to saying that Fika's deck has a little bit more ability to draw and get money, so the debt is a little bit more painful for Crlundy. Although, again, this is kind of a turn. You get a royal carriage down, you get some ghost towns down, you pay off most of the debt. Now Fika's got to hope they can double, which I don't think is possible this turn, but it might be possible next turn. They should be able to haven away some nobles, it looks like. Yeah, they should be able to haven away at least 1 nobles here, which is quite nice. And then they'll have 15 money, yeah. So they can get province. The duchies aren't terrible. Province, duchy, haven. The havens seem quite nice in terms of setting aside nobles or setting aside just any green cards for crossroads to find. I could also believe a 3rd crossroads is reasonable given the number of green cards in the deck.
they just ended up getting province and 2 ghost towns. I don't really like the ghost towns. Again, I'm not quite seeing the full thought process here, but maybe there's something that I'm missing. So Crlundy's got 10 coins in hand. They need to get 3 more coins if they want to pay off debt and buy province, which they just were able to do. Here they can play the Haven first and decide if they want to set aside a tax on nobles. I think probably you just want to set aside the nobles, not pay the taxman here, play the taxman here and buy a province. Do they have a royal carriage down? They do. They could trash another copper. Like royal carriage on the taxman to trash another copper, and then they have a clean shuffle drawn with the nobles, which is a nice tactical thing that they can do. Again, their deck has gotten quite a bit worse here as well with the addition of these extra provinces, and I guess they're not adding more treasures, but they are adding more green cards, and so the crossroads makes a lot of sense there. The thing I don't like about the ghost towns is they don't interact well with the crossroads, and I feel like a deck that has this many green cards in it, you want to be looking for things that interact with green cards. So to me, that's more the Haven and the crossroads stuff than the ghost town. And maybe you try to have 2 ghost towns or something, so you have one coming in just in case, you draw a bunch of... So just in case you draw a bunch of nobles, but nobles make draw themselves. Sure, but Haven also makes starting hand larger. It's cheaper, and it gives you more control over what the card is that you're drawing. In theory, like if you have an extra crossroads, you can set aside an extra crossroads every turn. So Fika hits 16 and goes triple duchy. I think I agree. I think province duchy estate might have been better. I'm not 100% on that. You can also consider as Crlundy royal carriaging the crossroads here for like huge deck. You just really wish that you had some havens to set these nobles aside now. But here we're going to get a bunch of buys, 3 buys it looks like, 17 money. Is there a treasure on top? There might be a gold on top. There's a silver on top. Okay. Why did they call the rail carriage? Do they see a pile out that I'm not seeing? I don't see a pile out here. This turn felt awkward. I felt like they could have saved their rail carriage. And I guess the problem is they can't buy more than 1 duchy, probably. So they need to just buy province, duchy, estate. If they buy 2 duchies, then they leave open Fika having a duchy pile out. But I felt like they maybe wasted a royal carriage in there for that extra buy when province, duchy, estate was fine. The second estate doesn't seem like it does much. Yeah, it's certainly possible they planned things out more in advance than I saw, but that feels bad because now all Fika has to do is get 15 and 3 buys, which is not something that's super difficult for their deck to do. Especially with this starting hand, it looks pretty clear, and Fika assumes they have it by setting aside the ghost town with the Haven. So they've got 9, 13. They just have to find a couple more money, and this looks like a win in hand now. Yeah, Crlundy just could have just taken 1 duchy, and I think they're still in okay shape. Fika can't really, he has to get 20 and 4 buys, which I don't think they have in their deck without royal carriages. So they have to get, they can't even touch duchy. I think Crlundy gave that one away at the end. The fact that they had royal carriages and buys meant that Fika couldn't actually touch any of the piles there. They couldn't touch province or duchy if Sierra Leone had bought one fewer duchy. So that's game 2, and maybe we can go to the sim afterwards and check it out. I will join you all in game 3.